recently concluded UNGA, remember there was much support galvanized not just by Western nations but also Latin American nations, also the global South, which are now calling for Palestinian statehood. Can the two-state solution even be achieved? This, as Netanyahu and his administration have been calling to annex the West Bank. And that is something which is not going to go down well, not just for Palestine, but also for the Arab nations, many of whom have played a very significant role as far as these negotiations are concerned. I break down the challenges for you.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home.
Hamas has agreed to release all the remaining Israeli hostages. Remember, it is believed that 48 hostages are still being held in the Palestinian territory by Hamas, only 20 of whom are presumably alive. This, as the armed group has responded to the US peace proposal with a statement on Friday, agreeing to release all Israeli prisoners, both living and dead. The caveat being that the proposal ensures that the field conditions for the exchange are met. But as they say, the devil lies in the details. Hamas wants further negotiations on a number of key points outlined in the US peace plan, especially regarding the future of Gaza and the rights of Palestinians. Hamas has said they are still being discussed. What's significant is that the armed group is willing to hand over Gaza to Palestinian technocrats, meaning Hamas would have no role in governing Gaza. But is that an indication that it wants Gaza to be administered only by Palestinians and not by Trump's proposed Board of Peace, a committee made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts, meaning supervision by a new international transition body? Clearly, Hamas doesn't want that. Do note that the Hamas announcement came hours after US President Donald Trump gave them a Sunday deadline. This to accept the peace plan or face all hell, raising the critical question: could this move be an attempt by Hamas to buy more time? And is the US now in for yet another long drawn-out negotiations? The most glaring omission by Hamas is the absence of its willingness to disarm, a key demand in Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan. Hamas is mum on this requirement, so expect the Israeli government to now be poring over the wording of the Hamas statement. And so on expected lines, Israel is going to glean the true intent of Hamas. The Israelis will not like the last paragraph of Donald Trump's statement either, a suggestion that Hamas retains a role in negotiations over Gaza's future. This, as Trump has already called on Israel to immediately stop the bombing of Gaza, primarily for a speedy and safe evacuation of the hostages. Israel clearly has defied Trump's instructions. But there's still a huge amount of detail to be worked through. This before peace prevails in the region. The US president is well aware that this is not a done deal.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents, because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive.
Now, here's the bone of contention. How will Donald Trump convince Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government to agree to a two-state solution, knowing their long-standing opposition to a Palestinian state? That too at a time Israel is publicly discussing proposals to annex parts of the West Bank, with Gaza being touted as a real estate bonanza, both by Israel and Donald Trump. So here's why the West Bank matters to the two-state solution. It would become the core of an independent sovereign state of Palestine. And even though the Trump administration is not openly opposed to annexation of the West Bank, here's what may deter the US president. Even a limited annexation of the West Bank territory would drive a deeper wedge between Israel and its Arab partners. Trump's ally, the UAE, has already warned that any annexation of the West Bank would be crossing the red line. causing a direct dent to Trump's foreign policy crown from his previous administration, the Abraham Accords. An agreement that was facilitated by Donald Trump, one that ensured that Arab governments sidestepped the Palestinian issue, only to find common ground with Israel on trade and their shared rivalry with Iran. But with growing support for Palestinian statehood, not just by Arab nations, but by the wider West, that includes France and Britain, there is pressure to end the war in Gaza and give Palestine the recognition it's been fighting for at the UN too. Only if Israel relents. For now, the two-state dreams have one reality: that a peaceful coexistence for Israelis and Palestinians is anything but feasible, even if that means Israel walks the path to global isolation.